All right, everyone. This is Sierra, Deutsch, and Julian. This is our first live podcast as well. This is going to be fun. And we're here in Zurich, where Sierra is teaching at the university here. Hey, you teaching economics?
No, I teach in geography, actually.
All right.
And I teach a course called political ecology, and that's where capitalism comes in.
Oh, I see. Okay. So Julian Petrini from Argentina, from Buenos Aires.
Yeah, sure.
You can say hello to you can say a little hello in Spanish.
Hello to everyone who speaks Spanish all around the world. So, les mando un saludo grande, un beso a todos.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
And then it's me, Ivor. Hello, everyone.
That's Ivor.
Which part of America did you say? Which city you said you're from?
I've lived in several different states. So I grew up in New Jersey.
Yeah.
But then I left as soon as I graduated high school, moved to California, and then from California to Texas, and then South Carolina for a few months, back to Texas, and ended up in Oregon before I left for good. Well, for good for now.
Why were you moving around so much? Were your parents kind of...
No,
or were you studying?
Going to school. So
Yeah.
I did my undergrad in California, and then I did a master's in Texas. And as part of that master's, I did my research in New Zealand, and then came back. And at some point in there, I was also in South Carolina for a little bit. And then then I went to Oregon and did a master's there, along with a PhD. And then I also did a graduate certificate in marine resources management.
Wow.
So that's how many years of studying, roughly? So you got one PhD and
I think I've calculated it as 13 years of post-high school
post-high school education, right?
Yeah.
And the PhDs were in... Your PhD was in the...
It's
I got that wrong
interdisciplinary, so
earlier.
it's in environmental sciences, studies, and policy.
Yeah.
And we had to have a focal department, so mine was sociology.
Wow.
So
Nice.
up until that point, I had been strictly natural sciences, and then I added sociology.
So when you see
Like
both of
a-
us just nodding, that means we've got no idea what you're talking about. When you see us just doing this, we're going like, yeah.
I don't know. I think I'm getting it. Yeah.
Sociology.
Yeah. Like the whole.
The whole...
I think I just heard her like 2 minutes, but it's like she's really interested in observing the world, how everything works, how everything is connected, and maybe sometimes things they are not like as you first saw them. You think they are not connected, but in the end, everything is kind of going through, you know. So I'm really interested in this, you know.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've had quite a few meetings, and that's what I picked up from you. I wouldn't be able to define sociology.
I don't know if I could specifically define it either, but for
Really?
me, it's about studying the interaction between individuals and society
Oh,
and how
okay.
those influence each other.
Oh,
And
I
there's a very
see.
strong focus on structural power as well.
I just heard sociology, and I think it just triggered me, and I just went, "Oh, I'm out of my depth." But I knew I'd be anyway.
But this is where the capitalism comes in. That's when I started studying capitalism, was in sociology.
All right. And getting a firm grasp on it, because we've spoken about it. Actually, I don't know how the conversation began, but because you lecture here in Zurich about capitalism, not so,
Right.
and neoliberalism, which I battle to pronounce,
Yeah.
but I kind of understand it, yeah. And I can't remember exactly what you told us, but it kind of got the guy next to me. He's
Not me. Yeah.
that's why I pointed the other way.
It sounds it.
And he was standing on my right at that
Okay,
time, not on my
cool.
left. But he just went like, how dare you? You know, he's from India and he's paying for his family. You know, if it wasn't for capitalism, he wouldn't be able to pay for his family, you know, to have a good life or whatever. And he just, I don't know, he just really reacted. And
Yeah.
I think you had said maybe 2 sentences. And but then I asked you, and you said, "Oh, no, you're completely used to that." Like when you say that you're an anti-capitalist.
Yes. And I think it's also, I don't know, for me it's important to acknowledge what he's experiencing as well, because there are people all over the world who have become sort of victimized by capitalism and not having nothing to do with their fault.
Yeah.
And then They see a way to get out of what capitalism has dug them into, and that's by joining capitalism. And I don't fault people who do that at all. People are just trying to survive.
Yeah, you were calm. I mean, you were so calm when he got quite agitated. We just had a barbecue and people were drinking, alcohol and.
It's funny.
There for a fun time.
I don't remember him getting super agitated.
Yeah, you
but
don't remember.
I'm just used to people.
You're just used to it. Yeah, it's like a doctor saying blood, I think. Yeah, it's like you're just so used to people going, "Oh, you're anti-capitalist," and then they just put up their walls.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, why do people put up walls immediately? Do you think it's because they immediately think you're a communist or a socialist or?
That's a really good question. I think it's because part of capitalism is teaching us that there's no other alternative to capitalism.
All right.
And so I think that's very much embedded in the system of capitalism, is this sort of knee-jerk reaction to, oh my God, we can't not do capitalism. And usually, it means then we have to do communism. That's the only other option.
Yeah.
And we've done that experiment and it failed miserably and a lot of people suffered. And so we can't go back to that.
Yeah. Are you advocating that we go back to a communist type thing?
Not in the sense that it has been experimented with before. So there's a big difference between what communism was then and what it could be now or in the future. And actually, I would advocate more for socialism, because socialism is more democratically involved, whereas communism is more kind of the government controls the means of production.
Yeah.
And in socialism, it's more communities that control the means of production. So people have a lot more autonomy with respect to how they distribute their goods.
Like influence on.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of what happened, from my understanding, I'm not an expert in communism really, but part of what happened from my understanding was that in order to have like a socialist system work, so a socialist system is basically where the means of production are owned by a community.
Mm-hmm.
So that means all of the things that you're producing, it benefits the community, and because the community owns the means of production, there's no one person making a profit off of things that are being sold. It's the benefits go back to the community. And so this is the idea behind or a very general idea behind socialism. But what happened with communism is that they adopted this idea where the government would would own the means of production and control it, but there was not a whole lot of democracy involved in that, and they also didn't really have the infrastructure. Yeah. So, like for example, we have the infrastructure up and running in Switzerland where goods are produced and it's really reliable, and so then to take that and shift it into the community hands would be a much less sort of bumpy road than when Russia or USSR, for example, didn't have the infrastructure. They weren't producing a lot of their own goods, and like having that taken over, of course it's going to fail because it already wasn't doing very well in the first place.
All right.
Wow.
So there's a lot that can be said about the failure of communism, and I think people just sort of black and white it.
Yeah, and the truth is in the nuance, and that's what we're going to try and understand, because it's this is not our area of expertise, but we're going to try and see exactly where you're coming from, and we have spoken at length about it already, but I'm still confused. So you were talking about degrowth as well, which you said that there were meetings in government with regards to degrowth.
There was an EU meeting on degrowth. I don't really know what happened at those meetings. I just heard that they were happening and was just shocked that it was happening at this level of government.
So it wasn't Klaus Schwab at Davos, was?
No, I don't think so. It was in the EU. There was a governmental meeting about degrowth and discussing.
Damn it, because I nearly brought my Klaus Schwab suit, and because you hear the headlines of him saying, "You'll be poor but happy," but actually, when I researched it, it was actually just an ad that they put out years ago. His corporation put out years ago. But then I watched him in a podcast, and he actually made quite a bit of sense. What
do you mean by "you'll be poor but happy"?
the new world order will. So you're not going to own anything, but you will be happy, and that triggered a lot of people, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's in the research for this podcast, I didn't ever see him actually saying that. He was just saying
So
that
he was talking about communism then, or
he was just saying how things just need to be regulated because it's just so hard nowadays with money moving hands, with these huge, and that gets back to neoliberalism, I think, with these huge companies owning so much of the resources of the world, companies like Meta or Google,
yeah.
but also Microsoft, and then there's the Rothschilds family as well that also is kind of balancing things out. It seems like,
yeah.
But it seems like from his perspective that there just needs to be more communication between government and big company. Yeah, I see you. Yeah, so there's a lot going through your mind at the moment. What?
Yeah, I think it's. I don't even know where to start. So, part of what the critique is of people who work on capitalism, like political economists, is that we sort of separated the economy and we govern it separately, and we act like it's not a social political thing, and we act like it has nothing to do with our social lives and with politics, and it actually has everything to do with that. Like the economy, everything relies on what we can get for ourselves, what we can provide for ourselves.
Yeah.
And the economy is entirely political. But what happened was it got separated from the political system. And so now we're in this situation where the economy is pretty much governed by its own government. And this is usually large corporations or people who work at these big, like World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. And what that means is that there's also sort of no transparency and no like democratic electing of the people who work in these places. They're often assigned by governments. So,
sorry, just for the viewer, what you're describing now, that's neoliberalism. That is kind of what you're describing right now.
That's what it's
so
becoming.
The control is now in these big companies.
Neoliberalism, but also in what is now a lot of people are referring to as financialized capitalism.
Oh, right, yes.
Where all of the power is sort of being moved to the banks, away from the government and to the banks, and to people who have a lot of money and a lot of power.
Yeah, and the
governments are actually sort of losing control of this monster they've created at this point.
Yeah, because these people have got so much money that they can influence global decisions.
Yeah, exactly.
And
they can influence global decisions, and they're not democratically elected.
And therein lies the problem. Is that the
That's
biggest
one
problem?
Of the many problems.
Is that one of the many? Okay, all right. But would you say that's the root of the problem, and the others stem from that, or there's a whole lot of
I would say the root of the problem is that it's very simplest, that capitalism is the private ownership of the means of production.
Yes, okay.
And so from that, we also understand that in capitalism, in order to kind of be competitive and in order to kind of not get like dissolved into another company or something, you have to keep making profit, and you have to Marx referred to capital as value in motion, and so it's not just sort of like a sum of money that you set to the side.
Yeah,
it's value in motion, so it constantly has to be moving. So you're opening a business, and then you're making a profit from that, and then you have to reinvest some of that back into the initial business, but then you're investing it in other places. Mm-hmm. And the idea is you just have to keep this capital in motion. And what Marx and others have theorized, and what we've seen with economic crises, is that when that stops, if there's, for example, you can't invest into a new company, or you have inflation or deflation, then the economy just sort of stops.
Yeah.
And that's when we see these big crises.
And the people that suffer are the little people. It's not the wealthy that suffer.
Yes, absolutely.
It's the majority, the 99%.
Yeah.
Or the 98% maybe.
Yeah.
And they really suffer.
And they suffer in the production of this profit as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because this is another understanding about profit, is that the profit comes from exploiting either labor or basically like taking the things out of the environment and not sort of cleaning up after yourself, or not being expected to clean up after yourself.
So exploiting people and the environment, basically.
Exactly. And that the way they make profit is by not having to pay for the exploitation of people and the environment. This
Because
is
you
where
can
the
exploit
profit
people in
comes
other
from.
countries.
Yes.
And you can exploit the resources in other countries, which is
Exactly.
quite easy because you're not seeing it. So, and the people that are around you aren't seeing it.
Right.
So there's no way of
Yeah.
controlling them. Yeah.
But now it's spreading more within countries as well, because it's sort of done its thing around the world. And the thing about capital is it needs to keep finding new places to go, because it needs to keep moving, right? So this is why we see things like credit. Like credit cards are a huge thing in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what caused the housing bubble. So the capital had to go somewhere, so they started selling subprime mortgages to people. And then that was just essentially fake money, right? And it basically failed in the end. And then capital had to figure out, it needs to figure out somewhere else to go now.
Yeah, I heard after 2008, after that housing bubble crash, I heard a lot of that capital went into cars.
Yes.
Funny enough,
Cars and student loans.
Cars and student loans,
Wow.
really? Yeah. Yeah. Student loans is a big thing now in the States. Hey.
Yeah.
So.
And a lot of it's moving online now too. So there's a lot of profits being made online.
How are people making profits online?
A big part of it is selling people's data.
Oh wow!
Selling
companies.
selling people's data to advertisers, so that they can then figure out how to manipulate people into buying their things.
Yeah.
So that then they can sell more things. So it's another way to make more profit, is to sell more things. Right.
Because the way that it works, from my understanding, is that with capitalism, there always has to be growth.
Yes, exactly.
There always has to be growth, and as soon as
And
there's
this is
not growth, as
this
soon as
goes
there's
along with the value emotion thing. So.
the value in motion, exactly. Yeah. That's probably a better way of saying it.
No, but they're connected. Capital has to be continuously in motion,
Mhm.
and that means that it has to continually be growing.
Yeah.
So they're not precisely the same thing, but they're related. And this is why people are sort of pointing at capitalism and saying that we need to do something about it.
Yeah.
Because you can't have an infinitely hungry economic system on a finite planet.
Yeah.
Yes, I think because like the gap is getting wider, because in one point the people that are moving a lot of money, they realize that the money, it doesn't have value like before. For instance, you have $100 and you can access to a lot of things. And I live this as an Argentinian with inflation. I used to live with that, but now it's happening through the world. And so people that really have money and things, they realize like there are some institution or so that they just make a click or they print money. So what gives value to that? And the another part of the world that keeps on living with with nothing, you could say, they are still in that race. But the other ones, they are in another scenario. So it's getting faster. This
You mean the separation between the wealthy countries and the poor?
Yes, I won't say about countries now, because you could have a lot of money and you are moving through countries. So it's not about countries, because you could be in a really poor country and you could be like the king because you have all prepared for yourself. And you could be in a really rich country and in paper you could say you live really well, but in action basically you are not able to access many things.
And there's a lot of research now showing that this inequality, this separation of the rich and the poor is happening more quickly now within countries rather than across them.
Oh, really? It's actually, so it's more inside each country than in comparison with one country and another, because
the growth in inequality anyway, maybe not the actual inequality itself.
I don't know
if
so it's faster, but it's still happening. I mean, Switzerland is still, I mean, it's very wealthy.
Yeah.
And then you go to South Africa or Argentina and you just see.
Yeah, but maybe why Switzerland is very wealthy, because it has money from different places of the world, like dollar, euro, pesos, whatever. but also they have an active culture. I think this could be super important, and like a lot of super developed minds are here. So it's not only about money in one point.
Well, I think they started off with money after the fall of Germany, because it was poor here. I mean, when my grandfather and your grandfather lived here, it was poor. That's why your grandfather went to Argentina and mine went to East Africa. It was poor, and then with the Second World War, it became wealthy.
Argentina was really well then.
Yeah, and then it became really wealthy after the second. Anyway, we're talking.
But no, like I think this is important as well, because to me it's where capital puts its surplus. Like think about all the banks here and all the people who are storing money in banks here, many of them who don't have to report it to their own countries.
Yeah.
Like this is where the capital surplus is.
Yes.
And of course you want to protect the country where your capital surplus is stored.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So people are going to be happiest there.
Yeah.
So when you have people from all around, it's like maybe they are against each other, but they share one place. Like, okay, let's keep it safe.
Yeah, let's look after this one place. Yeah.
Could be. I don't know.
I don't know either. That's just my my hypothesis, I guess.
But I think in one point, all comes to education, because yes, money gives control, but if people would knew, like it's not only about money. Even though they could not have the money, they could, react in another way or organize. I don't know. But the money thing is like it's a race that it's getting far, so you don't have time to organize something and do other things.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about this in the literature too. I think that's the idea, is if you keep people working and working and working and working, they don't really have time to think about to think about their situation and to think about how to get out of it.
Yeah, definitely. At least in my country, I could not say everyone, but not the richest. Yes, but mostly you are trying to think day by day, month by month, because inflation takes your possibilities. Because you earn 1,000, and at the end of the year, that 1,000 you won't be able to take the same things.
Yeah.
So you are always thinking about okay, how can I make this, or if I buy 2 mics it will be better because at the end of the year. So you're always
it's a constant calculation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you're getting hit with, well, at least in the US, constant bombardments of advertisements.
Definitely.
And so you're exhausted, you're unhappy because you're working all the time, you never see your friends, you never hang out with your family, you don't do things that are fulfilling. All you have time to do and energy to do is to sometimes watch TV or Netflix or just any kind of situation where you're being bombarded with these advertisements. And
yeah,
think,
because you're working so
maybe
hard.
I'll be happy if I can buy these things. So then you're buying more stuff because you're too exhausted to do anything else, and you are looking for fulfillment, and then you have to work more in order to pay for that more stuff. So it becomes this cycle.
Self-perpetuating cycle, yeah,
Exactly.
that keeps driving you.
And capitalism very much relies on this cycle.
And the last time we sat down, you made it so clear to me exactly what's going on that I just said, well, we have to do a podcast about this because people just need to know. And I wrote it all down, and then I lost that piece of paper.
Oh my God.
But you know me.
Yeah.
All right. So
somehow it doesn't amaze me.
But the one glaring thing that I remember is that, of course, if you're a big company, you can. I mean, even these clothes that we're wearing, we've got no idea where they come from. So a big company, you can outsource a whole lot of your labor. Actually, do you mind just talking about that for to start with?
I mean, I guess this goes back to where profit comes from.
Yeah.
So if you have to pay, like if there are good labor laws in a place, then you have to pay employees properly. And a way to get around that and get more profit is to export your labor to another country, or I guess in some way import it from another country. So then you buy factories in countries that don't have these social protections.
Yeah.
And then you can pay people whatever you want.
And then you get these big factories where people are working, even and then children working
Yes, exactly.
all over the world.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
And the same thing goes for
Asia.
environmental regulations. You just put your factories where there aren't any environmental regulations.
Yeah, and a lot of big, I mean, even clothing companies have been caught out, and then 3 years later they get caught out again, and they get a slap on the wrist, and then they just move
Yep.
from
exactly.
one country to another, because it's, I mean, and then if you go and buy clothing, you don't know where it comes from, so we're all blinded.
Yeah.
I've got no idea where the shirt came from, but it was
Yeah.
a nice shirt. Well, I
Yeah.
liked it at least, and then. Yeah, you've got no idea where it came from. You don't know whether it was sewn together by a 13-year-old child or and whether they're being forced to work 16 hours a day.
Yeah. So I think maybe I was talking about the concept of alienation
Maybe.
that Marx sort of introduced and people have taken up since then. But Marx originally talked about alienation when you move from a subsistence lifestyle and you then have to sell your labor in order to get the things that you need to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Often you're not making something from beginning to end. You're just making a piece of it, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're just making a piece of something, you become alienated from the thing that you're making because you don't see it from the beginning to the end. It's just, you're just doing this one thing and it's not really a whole thing. And then you also at the same time become alienated from your labor because you're not, I mean, humans historically have made things from beginning to end. So we get pleasure out of that.
Yeah,
And
seeing the end product.
It keeps us going, right? To build something from the beginning to the end, it's really rewarding.
Yeah, you get that dopamine rush, I'd say. Yeah.
And so capitalism sort of took this away. And then at the same time, it also took away our relation to nature. So you used to have to go and pull the things out of nature that you needed to make the things that you were going to make. But you don't have to do that anymore. It just is there for you. And so we've been alienated from our own labor, from the things that we actually make, from nature, and then also from each other. Because like you said, you go and buy a t-shirt, you don't know where it came from or who made it. And there are probably hundreds of people down the line of that contributed to making that t-shirt in some way or another. And they're completely invisible now. So you go to a store and all of the nature, all of the social and natural relations that went into that thing that you're buying, they're totally gone.
Yeah. Just one thing, when you say the word Marx, just a red flag. I mean, yeah, and maybe that's my conditioning, you know. But I believe that a lot of people that, you know, when you hear Marx, I mean, people have read the book Animal Farm, you know, like Marxism led to communism. So there's always like a red flag that it's kind of like a triggering word to use the word Marx, you know. Mm-hmm. But I've never studied Marx at all. I've never studied what he wrote. Clearly you have.
Yes. Yes.
So I just get triggered. I just go like, Marx,
but this is exactly one of the goals of capitalism, right? Is to make any kind of criticism of it trigger people so that they shut it down immediately.
All right.
So
okay.
this is a knee-jerk reaction that I think capitalism has specifically built into the system. That, oh no, we're not going to talk about any alternatives because that takes the eye away from what we're doing here.
So we've spoken about alternatives, but let's just go back to Marx. So he clearly was a clever chap, and you've studied his writings quite, and you
yes.
do you
among
lecture?
Many others.
Among many others,
among
right?
many others who have critiqued capitalism, and many of them started at Marx as well and built on to Marx's ideas.
I need
so
to go
like
get a
John
book.
Bellamy Foster, Nancy Fraser, David Harvey, Jason Moore, and many others.
Okay. Yeah, you know those guys. You've studied them.
Yes, we hang out a lot. Yes, but I was thinking a little bit like these guys, they were from, maybe not all of them, but in another time. Mm-hmm. Now that we were born in this system, and I just read from Marx in economics or a little bit, when they show you things with proper intention or so on, we are into the ocean. What do you think we should do, at least not to go out, to realize where we are, or the first steps to change?
So you're asking about the
the alternatives, because
Yeah.
it just seems well I agree with Julian that we're so deep in the middle of the ocean with capitalism.
But I think, like, I'm super ignorant with this. I would like to, but I think we are not yet in Deutsch, Entschuldigung. We are not right now like living
A Spanish person
capitalism.
speaking English, he's learning Deutsch, he's learning German.
It's all mixed.
All right.
But I think nowadays we are not living capitalism as like it was communism in that era, you could say. Now it's like a salad of things. It's like a mix. So like when people, they want to hear this, they send a little bit. So in my standpoint, what do you recommend for me? Like, okay, at
What do you
least
mean by it's a salad of things or a mix of things?
I think it's like if you define capitalism, then when we check the actual world situation, it's a little bit tricky.
So this is one of the things that people often will say, and they'll say, like, you can say capitalism, but you can look everywhere and just say capitalism, 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 and it loses its meaning.
Yeah.
But actually, if you understand, so at the moment, capitalism is a series of processes of neoliberalization.
Okay.
And so these neoliberalization processes happen in very inconsistent and context-dependent ways. But you can still, if you pull out these processes, you can see each of these processes. So one of those things is privatization. So you can see clearly how more and more things are becoming privatized.
Yeah, definitely.
Another one of those things is marketization. So pulling things out of nature, for example, that didn't have a value before and trying to put a money sign on it so that it can then be put into the market.
Can you give an example of that? Because
Irrawaddy dolphin. This is part of my research, right? So I looked at Irrawaddy dolphin conservation, and in Cambodia, they tried to save the dolphin by developing dolphin ecotourism. And in this particular case, the way that it unfolded was basically in a very neoliberal way. And so assigning a monetary value to the dolphin actually, in the end, didn't do anything for the dolphin. It was still doing worse, and it created more problems around it because people were really invested into this dolphin ecotourism, and a lot of people were carving wooden dolphin sculptures to sell to all the tourists that were coming. And then based off all the money that the people made, and it's important to note that it was just a few people who were making a lot of money. A lot of other people around them were suffering because they couldn't fish anymore, for example. But so the money that they were making off of this dolphin ecotourism, they then would build larger wooden houses. So you see a huge increase in the amount of wood that's being used in the area. And I don't think it's coincidental that the areas nearby these ecotourism places were where forests were experiencing the highest levels of deforestation and illegal deforestation. And so I never made that direct connection because I didn't have the data for it, but I think it's very likely that those forests are being deforested because of the dolphin ecotourism.
But the advantage was that you could compare it to the country almost
In Myanmar.
to Myanmar.
Right.
And so this was in 2014, 15, you were saying,
Yes.
so it was before the atrocities in Myanmar. So
Right. Well, it was between the atrocities
it was
in
between,
Myanmar, I would say.
yes,
yeah.
between the atrocities in Myanmar. So, and they had what system were they using with the dolphin tourism?
So I would call it more of a socialist system maybe, or even a communist system, because what they were doing was the people who were running the ecotourism were associated with the government as well as these non-governmental organizations, we call it NGOs. Mm-hmm. And they would go and take people out to the dolphins. And in Myanmar, it's also different because the fishers and dolphins have like a relationship where they actually communicate with each other and help each other fish. So like the fishers will go out and like signal the dolphins that, hey, we're out here, we want to fish, and the dolphins will signal back that, there are fish over here, come this way.
Amazing.
And that they basically have this whole system of communication, and then they both benefit from it because when the fishers throw their nets, any of the fish that are kind of stunned and try and get away, then the dolphins catch, and they catch a lot more that way. and the dolphins herd the fish together for these fishers to throw their nets on. So they've had this relationship for several generations, so a couple hundred years, and they've maintained this relationship, and it's been suffering because of the decline in the dolphins. And so the idea of the Myanmar government was to really put a focus on this relationship and really encourage traditional livelihoods. So they went the opposite way of Cambodia, where in Cambodia they were trying to discourage people from traditional livelihoods. So fishing was a big thing that they wanted people to stop doing. And so they gave them alternatives like the dolphin ecotourism. And there were some other alternatives as well, but by far dolphin ecotourism was the biggest alternative.
Maybe at the time they were thinking, well, we want to preserve the fish. I don't know.
In Cambodia?
In Cambodia, yeah. Why did they want people to stop fishing? I mean,
because one of the major causes of the dolphin decline is fishing equipment, like getting tangled in fisheries equipment. Yeah. But it's actually only particular nets that they get entangled in. But the government kind of went a little, like the people who were enforcing the laws went a little bit gung ho on it, because they really, once these dolphins started making money, that was it, man. Like, we got to protect these dolphins. And so everyone around who was, even if I've talked to people who would just be fishing with a fishing pole, and they would come and take their fishing gear away and kick them out of the water. So they basically criminalized fishing because they wanted to protect the dolphin. At the same time, you have these huge commercial fishers coming in illegally from outside of the area, and they're coming in usually using electrofishing tools. So electrified nets, electrified rods, and they discharge this electricity to the extent where it can also harm dolphins, and it ends up just killing everything that's in the area.
Like fishing with dynamite, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they did have a problem with dynamite fishing before that, and now when I was there, it was more electrofishing.
Wow, fishing with dynamite.
Yeah.
Well, electrofishing, it's like with dynamite.
Yeah.
Wow. They do that off this African coast as well, with big, huge trawlers that certain countries, actually China has paid off African countries to just trawl, just huge nets and big long line fishing boats, and they can come in at night. You can actually see them. But I still don't see the connection. So with Cambodia, so that would be capitalism, because now this is taking off. So this capitalistic business of the dolphin, selling dolphins for the ecotourism. Not ecotourism. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
The tourism is now taking off.
Right.
And it's benefiting the GDP of the country, right? And now all of a sudden, so the country is concentrating on this. Everyone's happy that.
I don't know if it's necessarily benefiting the GDP of the. I mean, I don't know how much you know about Cambodia, but the government's pretty corrupt.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of that money probably doesn't even get reported.
All right. So what you're saying then is this is just like a microcosm. It's just like a microcosm that displays to you how capitalism just basically corrupts as a system.
Right, and also how it creates more problems than it fixes.
Yeah.
So it increased social inequality in the area, for example, because remember, I said privatization was one of the processes of neoliberalization. So the dolphin itself was becoming privatized because only certain people had access to work in this dolphin ecotourism industry. And other people were kept out of it. And it's the same thing with the selling of the wooden dolphin sculptures. So people would have certain access to purchase these plots of land where they could set up their stands to sell their goods to the tourists. So you see all this privatization happening in the area where other people are sort of kept away and kept out of participating. So you have privatization, and then you have the financialization of the dolphin. So the dolphin is assigned essentially a monetary value. With the idea is that if it has a monetary value, then the market will value it, and if the market values it, then it will save it. But we've seen the exact opposite happen. When things become rare, they become more expensive, and they become more sought after. And so people are more likely to take things that are more expensive, right? So it doesn't make sense to put them into the market, because then once they become valued, they become exploitable, and they become something that you want to exploit to make, well, that some people want to exploit to make more money.
That's we can include the link to Diamonds Explained. There's a Netflix documentary on that, how De Beers, Cecil John Rhodes, actually, who started De Beers, they realized this with diamonds, and then they limited supply, and then that just elevated the value of diamonds by limiting supply.
Yeah,
and that's the perfect,
very common tactic.
A very common tactic.
Yeah.
I mean, so I can understand how that happens with diamonds, but how does that happen in a normal marketplace? I mean, it's not happening surely with cell phones or with chips or how.
But the cell phone is the product itself, right? So, but it's not the initial resources the resource that was extracted.
Yeah.
So we actually are seeing this with the components of cell phones.
Like lithium.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think there could be a system that, despite of the human attitude, could work? Because sometimes I think maybe in capitalism, people could have good intentions, but then it's bringing more like problems. Or if there is a system that, even though someone is like a really bad human being, but the system works, it's protected. Do you think this could happen?
See, this is another thing that capitalism sells us. That capitalism tries to convince us that people are these self-interested, economically minded people. And there's been tons of research that shows that that's actually not true at all. Most of us really care about our communities. Most of us really care about our families. Most of us really care about the environment around us. And so it's actually the capitalist system that makes it difficult for us to care for each other and the environment around us. Because if you're struggling to make ends meet, and you're trying to sell your labor, and you don't see the connections with people or the environment anymore, that's all invisibilized, then it becomes easy to act self-interested, because you don't see the impact that you're having.
Yes,
Capitalism hides that.
Like you're disconnected the whole time.
Yeah.
Even though you try to connect, you are disconnected. Okay.
There's the lack of connection, which is what a lot of people are feeling, I'd say more now than ever in history, this lack of connection. I mean, even when people were at war, during the Middle Ages, and I mean, even this country was at war for many, many years, just between the Catholics and the Protestants. I think people felt more connected because they were, people at war might be more connected than what we are now. They definitely weren't killing themselves at the rate that humans are now.
Yeah.
I hate to keep bringing that up, but it's something very close to my heart.
Yeah.
And I think it is that disconnection that makes people just work and work and work, and we need to get to the bottom of that. So alternatives are always we've discussed that. I mean, how do you, and Julian alluded to that earlier, like it feels like we're in this ocean of capitalism, like we're in this big, huge ocean, and that it's just swept over like the flood, like the ice caps have melted already, and this ocean has already covered most of the ground.
Yeah.
And how do we swim ashore? I mean,
So I'll briefly go back to the Myanmar example with and what they did with the ecotourism there. So what they did was they paid the fishermen for their time directly, because the fishermen or the fishers were the ones who would take them to see the dolphin, who would take the tourists to see the dolphins. And so they got paid directly for their time. But then any other sort of profit that was made from these expeditions was given to the community in the form of material donations. So they were given things like mosquito nets and books and school supplies and medical supplies. And so that I found that really helped to solidify these relationships that people had with each other and with the dolphins. Whereas in Cambodia, the relationships totally changed. It became more about this thing that you were talking about individual sort of monetary gain that kind of became everyone's main goal. And I saw a very distinct contrast in people's values in the two different places, in their general values. And I sort of categorize these and go through them in the papers that I've written.
So you could almost say, I mean, this is, so I'm already thinking of a thumbnail for this video, but you could say, does capitalism turn us into psychopaths? Is the mere act, and then a lot of people might just say, well, capitalism is natural. You know, as soon as we moved out of hunter-gatherers, what else were we going to
That's
do?
exactly
You know,
the point, though. If you think about how long capitalism has really been around, I mean, like it's really been a part of everyday life. It's been basically since, what do we say? Like it started around mid 18th century, but then by mid 20th century, it was just here, like in most places, like that was it. And so of course it becomes normal and natural, and all our institutions are based on it. Our universities and our school systems are meant to teach us how to be good workers in a capitalist society, right? We're trained to be good workers. We're taught what to value in school, and that includes hard work, right? And getting a good job. And then you have our law systems as well. And this is part of neoliberalism that I didn't mention before, is that you have this rolling back of protections. So like workers' rights, for example, you see a lot of like unions are being busted in the US. You see all these workers' rights being rolled back, and environmental protections as well. And we see this especially in countries where we have these authoritarian rulers popping up.
That was it. That just came back to me because you spoke to me about, because I remember, and if people want to watch the full Monty, I mean, that whole thing, that whole era, sort of in the 80s, 70s and 80s, was all about these unions, you know, coming up against big business. But you don't see this anymore. You don't see these
being completely
big
torn
unions.
down.
How is that even
this
possible?
This is part of neoliberalism. This is one of the processes I was talking about before of neoliberalization, is the rolling back of these protections. And at the same time, you're rolling out protections for big businesses and big companies.
So the big companies are influencing government who are selling that unions are bad, basically.
I think it goes both ways. I think we've gotten to the point where the government and I think it's actually always been this way, where the state, and by state I mean the government and the companies are kind of working together to maintain a certain type of power.
Okay, at the expense of the workers.
Yes. Although it didn't used to be as expensive to the workers. Like there used to be a balance, because remember I was talking about how capital needs to expand and continue expanding. Well, at some point it's going to reach its ending, right? It can't continue indefinitely on a finite planet. So
well, it's like entropy. Hey, I mean, if
exactly.
it expands and expands at an exponential level, then eventually it's just going to reach a level where it can never satisfy.
Yeah.
Because if it goes like that, I mean, if it goes in a straight line, it might be sustainable. But as soon as that line starts curving, eventually it's going to be going straight up, and then it's not.
So a lot of people who study capitalism and political economy are that there's acknowledgement that we are in the end stages of capitalism.
Oh, really?
The question is what comes next. Yeah.
I have a question.
So it will go down and it will take humans with it, or we'll find a solution.
Yeah, but this, I think, you gave us these two examples. Like in this town, they gave to the people not money, like they exchange things. And in another example, they give money. And yes, definitely it worked better when they exchange things, because they are thinking and focus more in the community and so on. But my question is, because it is so like mixed, if you contrast those examples, someone could say, hey, but this is my freedom to choose what to do with my work. In the another scenario, it's more like someone is planning. How can people accept or embrace like a not maybe one leader, but a group of leaders that tell you and you're like, okay, I trust these guys because I know what they're doing? Because for me, I just can talk about my example. I come from Argentina, yes. So I don't believe in no one. Like, so it's like, I don't know.
So a lot of the alternatives that are happening now are happening on very small scale, because people can really you can really have a democratic involvement at the small scale. And they're becoming bigger, some of them like degrowth. And degrowth is kind of an umbrella for many different movements that aim at this idea that we can't continually grow. Some of them are explicitly anti-capitalist. Many of them I don't think are. But that's a whole nother topic. But then you also have like there are worker-owned businesses, for example, where the only people who work there own the business, and they decide as workers what to do with the profit from that company. And there are solidarity economies, which I know less about. There's eco-socialism, there's sharing economies, there's economies where like people will pool their resources. So for example, I have, I don't know, something that's not used all the time, a chainsaw or something, then that becomes sort of a communal thing where everyone knows, oh, she's the one with the chainsaw, so if I need a chainsaw, I need to go to her. So you kind of are sharing all of the things that you have, so not everyone has to have every single thing that they need. And there are lots and lots of examples of this. And there's also a concept called buen vivir, which you've probably heard of because it's a Latin American concept.
Okay, cool.
And it's this idea that we should be living the good life.
What is that word?
Buen vivir. It means good life.
Living the good life, yeah. And you were saying about buen vivir?
Buen vivir.
Okay, it's Espanol?
Yeah, Spanish.
Buen vivir.
Buen vivir.
With a B.
With
So
a
B,
V.
B, 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 B.
With a V,
Yeah.
like vital, like
A V.
yeah,
A V, okay.
like viva.
Viva, okay. All right. All right. Buen vivir.
Yeah.
All right. I kind of
Yes.
started daydreaming at one stage. I don't know. So,
Wow.
so that.
That's happened often, eh? Oh my god.
It's been a long day.
Well, it's nice when you're here because then when I do daydream, then
Okay,
then
cool.
you can catch me up.
Okay.
So you were saying because the question. Okay. Why I was daydreaming was I was going. Wait, hang on. Are you really answering that question? Because what he asked was, and then I didn't know whether I should interrogate you about this.
No, go ahead.
That's probably the wrong
You can delete
word.
always the video.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can
yeah. So
you
I
can redirect me.
yeah. So but the question he asked you was that people in Myanmar were told by people this is how you're going to do things, and he said from his understanding in Cambodia that was just the natural way people did things.
They weren't told in Myanmar.
Oh, they weren't?
No. They were just brought material donations, and they were quite happy with that. There was no
Was that the question that
expectation
you
of
asked?
individual money.
You can review the videos. It was quite different.
Was it quite different?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's totally what I heard.
So I think your point was that, like, how do you get people who are working to then not have their own money to spend on their own thing,
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
right?
how can you make people trust on someone and also without having the feeling that they are losing freedom? Because I think capitalism also plays with that. As soon as you want to go out, they are like, you are losing freedom and you want to grab it, you know?
Because it's like like you've got free choice to work harder than your neighbor. So, but you can get more goods because you're working harder. So, I think capitalism. How do you? So was that more the question?
It came. I don't know. I repeat it again. You don't get it, my friend.
So yeah, how do you answer that?
I mean,
you probably
it was the decentralization, like I was saying.
Oh, right.
Like you need to decentralize and have the power of decision making within a community, where you know everyone who's making the decisions with you. And so for me, that's key, is giving more power to the smaller communities, and then the higher up you go, the less power there is instead of the other way around.
Yeah, so there's two problems I see with that. The one is the obvious ones, of course, where there's just going to be bickering. You know, like there's going to be a hall full of, or there's going to be a town crier. You know,
Are you saying there's not bickering in capitalism?
yeah, no, yeah, right. But even in a small community, it's going to have to be quite small. So even if there's 150 people, you know, it's going to be the person with the loudest voice or the most charismatic, you know, or whatever, and then he's going to win the crowd over, you know, and the crowd are going to go, you know, let's go along with this.
But there are ways to deal with that.
Are there?
There are lots of different ways of involving communities. It doesn't just have to be in this one setting where it's like a boardroom and only the people who are the loudest get to talk. There are a lot of other ways to engage people in decision making. And it's just a matter of learning those methods or having someone who is is trained in those methods.
Oh, okay. Like the old stone with the Greeks, with the black and white stone. That's how.
Or like, for example, I mean, I don't use it for decision making, but one of the techniques I use in my class to make sure more voices are heard is I use a think, pair, share method.
Mm-hmm.
So I have
think,
people
pair, share. Okay.
I have people think to themselves about like I'll pose a question and I'll have them think about that question on their own and think about what sort of thoughts it brings up. And then I'll have them pair with another person, and then they share their thoughts with that one other person. And then, I mean, and you can do this step by step as you get to bigger and bigger groups. Or what I do is I usually just bring it to the full group, which is usually around 25, 30 people. And I found that people who didn't used to really speak up if you just do automatically the group of 30, that they were much more likely to speak up in this situation. And even if they didn't speak up, they'd already shared their ideas with someone else, and that person carried their ideas forward.
It's a tricky one. Hey, I mean, I just, in my brain, it's just so hard to reconcile, but I guess I've always been a capitalist.
I'm inside the
We all
pool.
have been.
Yeah,
We
but
live in a capitalist system.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of being like the people who are exploiting, I mean, yeah, I'll rephrase that. We all live in a capitalist system, so we think like a capitalist.
Yes.
But most of us actually aren't capitalists, because most of us aren't, the top 1% who are exploiting people in the environment to make their profit.
And it feels so good to when you are amongst a community, there's this feeling of belonging when all of a sudden you're amongst a community of people that you like and everybody's contributing. You just feel so good. I've been to a couple of these community sort of events, and you just go like, this is amazing,
Yeah.
And imagine feeling like that every day, know, that you belong in this. That would be amazing for this planet, don't you think?
definitely.
Yeah.
Imagine the creativity too that would come then from people being happy and feeling belonging every day.
Yeah. What levels we could reach as a species, and how much money we could make. So
I have to say thank you very much for your time, for giving yourself, because it's not only your time. You put all your energy, your thoughts, and your study, your long career. And for me, I want to say thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks.
yeah, and
Absolutely.
thanks for your time. It's a Friday evening. Yeah, giving your time.
Yeah,
It's so
absolutely.
busy.
Thanks for
Yeah.
doing this. I'm happy to do it.
And if people want to look up your research, it's under Sierra, like Sierra Nevada. It's spelled the same way.
Yeah,
Sierra Deutsch, as in the same as Deutsch.
CH.
Yeah. And they can look up your research.
And as far as I know, I'm the only Sierra Deutsch in the world.
Yes.
I've never found another Sierra Deutsch,
No, I googled you. There's only you.
which is
Yeah.
a good and bad thing.
Yeah, I'm the same,
more
and
bad.
I think you're the same as well. There's only one Julian Petrini.
I don't know.
You don't know. You haven't googled yourself.
I'm more than one.
Really?
I don't know.
All right. Well, and thanks people for listening, and we'll include all that information as much as we can.